Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this Cabinet meeting. We are here and we have apologies from Councillors Edith Macaulay and Councillors Toby and Barnes. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, thank you. I intend to take items 3 and 4 together. So if we can start with Councillor Southgate with his presentation. And thank you, Councillor, for being here and for what you do for our scrutiny process. Over to you, Councillor Southgate.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present this to Cabinet this evening. I was thinking back, I think this is only the second time I recall a call-in being upheld, actually, in the 13 years that I chair the Commission. So it's unusual, it does signal something. Moreover, it was upheld unanimously by the panel. And in essence, it was the case that members of the Commission were not satisfied, really, that the Cabinet had due regard to the public sector equality duty. And the right things had been done, but due regard, and look up the phrase, means with rigour and with an open mind. And the feeling was that perhaps insufficient attempts had been made to reach the particular interest groups represented, such as SIL, such as the Women Guild, that represent groups that are potentially affected by the proposed new charging regime. And I know we do, as a council, attach high importance to equalities. I recall that you were indeed Cabinet member with responsibility for equalities before you became leader. We do now focus more specifically, don't we, with Councillor Atwell's appointment to Cabinet on that role. So there are lessons to be learned. The supplementary agenda does set out in some detail the steps that have now been taken to complete the consultation process fully, and that's to be welcomed. And I suppose the only final we want to make is to be mindful of that should we face a similar decision point again. The only other thing I want to add is we've made 3 requests to Cabinet. No new news here, but we asked for a review of the effectiveness of the charging regime, the new parking charges after 12 months in terms of the number of permits issued and also the readings from the various air quality monitors around the centres. The second point, that if the review on the impact of the diesel levy, now rather more than 2 years, I think, in operation, should be tabled as soon as possible. And the third point, and Councillor Barnes isn't here to speak to this, but he did use the phrase that the proposed parking charges are just one of a suite of measures to address air quality. So we're very keen to look at a more comprehensive suite of measures, and not just charging, but other possible measures that could be taken to. I think everyone recognising that air quality really is a very worrying issue for us. We know that our levels are too high in key points all over the bar, not least immediately outside this building. So yes, we're keen to see proposals coming forward now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Southgate. It's always concise, comprehensive, and to the point, and we very much appreciate the work you do and the work of scrutiny and the points that you have made today. Okay, we're now, well, as I said, we're taking items 3 and 4 together, and I ask Councillor Martin Welton to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Peter Southgate for presenting the call-in from the Overview and Scrutiny Commission and the reasons for the call-in. I think it's fair to say that it was a very extensive call-in. It considered all the different points that had been raised, and it was actually scrutiny working at its best. So I would like to thank the members of the Commission, and obviously in terms of the recommendations, we obviously have accepted them as Cabinet. But since that meeting, which is now nearly 1 month ago, the Cabinet, the Council, has undertaken extensive work in terms of contacting the impacted groups prior to the meeting tonight, but also as well undertaking further consultation to address the specific points raised in the call-in. I draw Cabinet's attention to 2.13 in the report, and the groups that the Council has made contacts with since the last meeting. They are Wimbledon Guild, Merton Vision, Merton Sill, Merton Mencap, Age UK Merton, Merton Citizens Advice Bureau, Wimbledon District NCT Group, Merton Carer Support. It was also sent to MVSC in order to flag with all voluntary sector organisations. And we have a flourishing voluntary sector in this borough, and it is right that obviously we take their views, but also as well ensuring that they were fully represented. But it wasn't just actually contacting those groups, it was making follow-up calls by phone and email, and offering them a direct meeting if they so wish. They are also invited to the Cabinet meeting here tonight if they wish to make representations here to Cabinet. I think it's important we do understand the full range of views that were raised. You will obviously see in 2.13 the following questions were posed. The attached equality analysis supports delivery of our statutory duties under the Equality Act 2010, and in particular the public sector equality duty. The Council is also required to ensure that it meets its obligations under the Human Rights Act. The Council is keen to ensure that it has captured direct views from a number of organisations and bodies that represent or support those with protected characteristics across the borough. In light of this, I would welcome an opportunity to come and meet with you, alternatively to arrange a telephone conference call or receive written views related to the following. And these were the points raised. Do you feel that Section 3 of the Equality Analysis document reflects the individuals and groups that will be affected by these proposals? Are there other individuals or groups that you feel we may be missing, and why? Number 2, Section 6 of the document sets out the areas of concerns that have been identified regarding the potential negative and positive impacts on one or more of the protected characteristics, in brackets, equality groups. Is this a fair representation in your view? And Section 8 sets out the Council's Equality Assessment Improvement Action Plan, which contains a number of actions required to mitigate the impacts on each protected characteristic group. Do you feel that these mitigations are appropriate? Are you aware of any further mitigations that the Council should consider? You will obviously see within the report that we have received responses from Wimbledon Guild, Merton Vision and Merton Age UK. Catherine James will go into further details in terms of the responses provided. I'd also as well like to draw Cabinet's attention to blue badges. Since the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, there has been changes in terms of blue badges and in terms of people who are eligible to blue badges, which has increased in terms of eligibility. I thought it was important, obviously, that Cabinet was well aware of that point here tonight. I'd also as well like to touch on the other points in terms of the other part of the consultation, that the other part of the call-in, that there should be a review 12 months after implementation of the new charges of the impact on air quality and the number of parking permits issued. Second point, that the results of the diesel levy should be reported to scrutiny as soon as practical. and that third one, as the approach to parking charges, is one of a suite of measures the Commission has foreseen the introduction of other measures to tackle air quality. We have again accepted these recommendations. Cabinet will be aware there is obviously an ongoing review of the diesel levy that is to shortly report back to scrutiny on the matter. We are aware obviously that parking charges is one but a range of measures in terms of tackling air quality within this borough, because we're well aware that air quality does need to improve, and obviously in terms of further measures. And it's quite right that obviously 12 months after implementations we do look at the assessment and we do look at the data. Obviously we are quite determined to improve, to work towards improving air quality in this borough, and it's right that obviously the council does look at the figures and at the impact in the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton. We now turn to Catherine James, who is standing in for Chris Lee. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Further to the Cabinet members' comments, I also wanted to touch on the issues raised at the recent Overview and Scrutiny Commission meeting, and also to thank Scrutiny for the opportunity to take a more detailed look at the points that they considered. During the development of the policy that you see in the papers before you today, and throughout the consultation period that started earlier this year, there has rightly been a significant focus on equality issues and the impacts that are likely to arise. This again is a good opportunity to remind members of the Council's obligations under the Public Sector Equality Duty, where there is a need to have due regard to the general duty that arises as part of that decision-making process. All public bodies must prevent discrimination and have due regard to the needs of residents and groups when carrying out their functions and implementing their policies. Merton Council discharges this through the equality analysis that's set out in Appendix C of the report. This has reviewed the impact of the proposed changes on those who share a protected characteristic. In 2019, the Council sought to undertake extensive consultation with residents, statutory bodies and groups. We've now had another opportunity to undertake further direct dialogue with those equality groups to test our assumptions. For example, are there further mitigations that the Council should be considering? The equalities analysis sets out a detailed profile of Merton as a place and assesses the impact of those proposed changes. Officers have reviewed the equity of the proposals, and there are both positive and negative impacts. Positive impacts to groups in terms of the improvement in air quality, and some negative aspects, for example, the lack of step-free access in all stations, which can impact on some individuals. The organisations we engaged with provided very good feedback, and as the Cabinet member said, I'd like to highlight some examples of that. Firstly, all of the groups that we spoke to felt that they had the authority to speak on behalf of their members, and that was very important. In overall terms, the groups were supportive of the suggestions to improve air quality in the environment, and in general to them, the mitigations seemed both reasonable and fair. If the policy reduces overall car usage, then this is a benefit to both elderly and disabled people, as it makes the street environment less intimidating and less daunting to them. Merton Vision were pleased to be able to talk to us to engage in dialogue as to ways in which travel can have less impact to the visually impaired person across the borough. The Wimbledon Guild confirmed that very few of their members drive, with most people who visit using public transport. In their words, they felt that Wimbledon was extremely well connected. Equality groups are also looking at the ways that they too are delivering services by providing outreach sessions where they go to an area rather than expecting all of the residents to come to Wimbledon. And they're giving you an example of where they'd like to do further work in Mitcham. And the groups are also very keen to work with the Council to monitor any proposed changes and impacts on an ongoing basis to better understand the effects that that has on their members. In light of those recent conversations, we've now added age as a protected characteristic in its own right. It was there previously, as we felt that a number of elderly people often have characteristics that are shared with disabled people. but further to those conversations, we feel that social isolation and loneliness is another impact that we've now added in to monitor. We will also continue to work closely with groups to ensure their concerns and ideas are understood by Transport for London and Network Rail, and the leader has recently written to Transport for London to raise some of those issues. We see this report as complementary to the work being undertaken on public transport provision within the borough and the local implementation of the Mayor's strategy to clean up London's air. We note the feedback from Merton Sill, for example, on cycle schemes being accessible for all, and in the same way we provide for disabled users in our car parks, we seek further consideration for cycle racks that can accommodate, for example, trikes, as well as two-wheel standard bicycles. Whilst reviewing the equalities analysis, we have identified some potential for negative impact, and it may not be possible to mitigate this fully. It is important before committing to any decision that the impact is proportionate to the legitimate aim sought to be achieved through this policy. The equality analysis score was previously a 2. That outcome is now a 3. That has been changed on the basis that social isolation and loneliness and that review and the issues that were raised by the groups have now been taken into account. It was always a borderline 2/3, but we feel that before members take their decision, that score should be amended. If members are minded to agree the recommendations this evening, we will keep the equalities analysis under review. We will continue to liaise with all of these equality groups, and we will bring a report back in 12 months after the implementation of any changes, not only to monitor the effect of the policy itself, but specifically around the equalities assessment. Whilst assessing those ongoing impacts and mitigations, adjustments will be brought forward for members' consideration as and when appropriate. Section 225 through 2.8 of the report confirms that the Director of Environment and Regeneration will submit a report back to members no sooner than 12 months after the implementation of the new charges, and in that highlighting the impact on air quality and the number of permits issued. Likewise, a further report will be presented to scrutiny later this year on the impact of the existing diesel levy, and the Council will continue to introduce a wider suite of measures to tackle air quality. The Air Quality Action Plan in 2018 highlights 70 of those actions that are already underway and will continue to be pursued by the Council. Other issues referred to in the call-in meeting, such as PTAL, differential charging and nudge-based behaviour. It's important that I record for this meeting that the paper has set out in 3.1 that the geographical approach to parking charges is in part based on PTAL ratings as a guide. This seeks to recognise the variable availability of public transport across the borough. It is possible to consider utilising a flat rate structure. However, this is very unlikely to nudge alternative behaviours that this policy is seeking to achieve, and does not recognise the transport accessibility differential within the borough. As has been said previously, Merton is not prepared to ignore its responsibilities. The proposed policy has been subject to extensive consultation and is an appropriate lever available to stimulate a change in driver behaviour. The proposal set out the framework for improving air quality, encouraging healthier places and more active lifestyles across the borough.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for that. Does Edward want to come in at this stage?
I would just like to say that Catherine's explained in a very comprehensive way the process that's been undertaken, and equality analysis is there to support you as Cabinet to make sure that when you're making decisions you've really thought about how it impacts on residents across the borough and the protected characteristics. I have to say that this has been an extremely thorough process. The idea is to look at evidence. You can make it desk-based, but being desk-based and just looking at evidence that way is never sufficient. It's always good to go out there and elicit the views of our residents. The initial consultation did actually capture quite a wide audience, but I think being proactively engaging, going out with those specialist groups, again, it just it just makes the best practice. And the interesting thing about the more in-depth consultation, we were able to gain more information on wider policy issues that we can continue to work with. And I think the thing to say that Catherine has reiterated, the equality analysis process, it's a continuous process. You know, we learn as we go along, and the more we get information, the more we go back and review the document. So it's not just sitting there in isolation. And I'm confident that the officers have done as much as they can to consider the impact on our residents, and also actively engage with them, going out there and doing the necessary outreach work and reflecting it in the equality analysis. Part of that review, and again the term, we say impact assessment, but here I like to use analysis because we're looking at data and we're telling the story. What are the trends? What is it telling us? And I think you've done that very well. The other thing we've done is moved it from outcome 2, which suggests that we can fully mitigate. And we've moved it realistically to an outcome 3 because we know that we can't fully mitigate every single negative impact that we have identified. And I think nationally, most public sector organisations are in the same boat. So I'm quite confident of the rigour that we've taken, the vigorous approach that we've taken on this occasion.
Thank you very much to the officers for those comprehensive contributions and for all your hard work. I now turn to Cabinet contributions. Councillor Attawar.
I'd just like to ask Everett if you are satisfied that since the call-in you have contacted all the equalities groups that were affected and feel that you've addressed all the issues that they have raised within that.
Yes, I'm confident that, and it's set out in the report in 2.13, for instance, so that the organisations that were actively contacting, such as Merton Centre for Independent Living, Age UK Merton and Merton Vision have raised issues that we can work with as a council going forward. And I think, yes, they have, and the responses that came back have been addressed as well, and the officer will now be having regular dialogue with some of these groups. I think it's been very helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Caroline Cooper-Marbella.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks, Catherine, for your detailed report. And I'm very pleased that you contacted Merton Vision for part of this. What I want to find out is how you will continue to engage with Merton Vision, especially regarding the issues they've raised with, having to want TfL to install vision-friendly board in Collinswood Station, and also whether we know when. You may not know now, but if you could find out when this new accessible technology will be rolled out in Merton, and whether they could take part in a pilot scheme for that. Also to get, I think you also talk about having a full assistance over the weekend, because they have assistance during the week, but that's sort of diminished during the weekend, whether we can probably encourage TfL to continue full assistance over the weekend for visually impaired people. Thank you.
Yes, Catherine.
Happy to pick that up, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I remember going out to Collinswood very well. Vision made me feel very, very welcome in going out to see their facility. In terms of the touch points that we have within environment and regeneration, there are quite a number in terms of working with Transport for London and Network Rail. As I said earlier, the leader has already contacted them, but we have said that we will try and arrange a meeting to have that discussion with TfL with them, and try to raise those issues, whilst they say that staff are helpful in trying to signpost people. Actually having a signboard there would help them out considerably. So we would certainly be taking those points on board and raising that with them. Thank you.
Any more Cabinet contributions? Thank you all very much. I think we're at the stage in this meeting where we can proceed to the recommendations. First we go to the recommendations on item 3. and I'll read these out. Recommendations 1. Further to hearing 2 call-in requests on the strategic approach to parking changes in the Overview Scrutiny Commission, resolved to refer the decision back to Cabinet for reconsideration in relation to the principal decision-making in respect of for human rights and equalities. Specifically, the Commission requests that Cabinet complete the process of consultation with affected groups prior to reconsideration of its decision. And 2, the Commission also asked Cabinet to take account of 3 requests made in relation to the proposed approach to parking charges and associated issues as set out in paragraph 2.7. These are: 1. That there should be a review 12 months after implementation of the new charges of the impact on air quality and on the number of parking permits issued, that the results of the diesel levy should be reported to scrutiny as soon as practicable, that as the approach to parking charges is one of a suite of measures, the Commission looks forward to seeing the introduction of other measures to tackle air quality. Are those 2 agreed? Those 2 recommendations agreed. Thank you. We now turn to item 4 in the supplementary agenda. The recommendations are as follows. Be mindful of the contributions from the Cabinet member and from Catherine James. Recommendations 1, the Cabinet note the additional information and from Everett consultation response as well as the amended equality analysis and action plan following the call-in and containing this report. And 2, the Cabinet reconfirm their support for the proposed parking charges. Are those 2 agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting. Thank you very much.